as you saw from the rather clickbaity title, was Mr. T in Ghostbusters? I don't like clickbait, so I'm going to tell you right now, at the front of the video, the answer is no. I would pity the fool that thought Mr. T was in Ghostbusters. But the longer answer, which we're going to explore in full, is kinda, maybe. Let's get into it. We've known for some considerable time about the specific police cars used in the Stay Puft scenes for Ghostbusters, when they had to build the miniature street at his feet of all the vehicles and everything. And the way they determined the scale of Stay Puft is one of my pet peeves, because a lot of places repeat the numbers 112.6 feet, which was a typo from the Cinefex article that came out in like '84. In context, in the paragraph, it says in that, and it's talked about in other places, Making Ghostbusters, talked about on the 1999 special effects featurette from the DVD.
It's 112 and a half feet tall. I don't know why.
Some people said he should be 125 feet tall. Some people said he should be 100 feet tall. Ivan Reitman said, put it in the middle, make him 112 and a half feet tall. But 112 and a half is not always easy to type. So somebody tried to turn it into a decimal and they miskeyed. They hit the 6 instead of the 5. But it's 112.5, not 112.6. So, how did that determine what size car they needed? Now, when you take a person who's approximately 6 feet tall, which granted, I am not, and you dress them as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, who's supposed to be 112.5 feet tall, it translates to approximately 1/18th scale. They said it was hard to find any toys at 1/18th scale, but they did find some. These new Bright Force 440 police cars that they bought out all the Toys R Us's in the surrounding area were pretty close and looked a lot like a New York City police car. And the ones of those that they didn't use as police cars, they turned into things like fire chiefs and taxi cabs. That always makes me think of Close Encounters. So after learning about the new Bright Force 440 police cars from people like Lauren White, I set out to find some. And first, I was getting these white ones with the blue stripes before I found any that were blue with white stripes. Now, at first, part of my brain was like, well, in a pinch, I could custom paint it into a blue with white stripes somewhere down the line. But I decided to wait and hold out, and before I ever found a blue one, I had a third white one that was a total beater. I mean, the light bar was all smashed up, didn't have the red or the blue covers to it. It had a wheel that was broken off, and I said, okay, this one's the one that might become a blue one. At the point that I found my first blue one, I thought I could turn it into a taxi cab. Then I found another blue one, and then I found this blue-green one. So yeah, I don't need it to be a blue police car anymore. My blues now outnumber my whites, so it did become the taxi, just like they had done for the movie.
And we had something like 100 of these police cars. We chopped them up and turned them into fire trucks and taxis and police cars and everything else.
Now, if you've gleaned any piece of information about me from my various YouTube videos, you probably know I'm something of a perfectionist, and that perfection tends to also go hand in hand with some procrastination. Often I'm looking for the very best way of doing something before I take the plunge. In the case of this guy, I was delayed quite a bit by Alabama humidity when I would spray paint it. I would have globs and little bumps in there that I would wet sand down and let it dry for a day and do another coat over and over and over. Also, I was unsure how to make the little sign on top. I thought about using Sculpey. I thought about using epoxy putty. In the end, I had a flash of inspiration to use sheet styrene and to fold it into the shape so it's got that rounded bit on the top and glue 2 panels on the side. And it was rather inexpensive to make it. It's actually a $2 or $3 welcome sign that I bought at Lowe's hardware store and then sanded off the original lettering. course, it didn't really want to bend. I snapped 2 of them, and then I thought, well, maybe if I apply heat with a hairdryer while I'm putting the bend in there. And then I melted one, so that's actually attempt number 4. Then I wasn't entirely sure how to put the sign on. I thought I was just gonna glue it in place. But I was looking at the scratches on the windshield and the missing silver paint on the bumpers, and I thought, you know what? I've spent all this time making the yellow paint job perfect. Let's really make this guy as perfect as possible. I just had a missing tire go rolling across the table there. So yeah, these 2 white cars, they are now a collection of mistakes and glitches, including some tires that I took off one of the blue cars because they were cracked. But I thought, well, let's look at all the parts and make the taxi the best we can. So that's the bumper off one white police car, the tail bumper off another, the windshield out of one of them. So I wound up changing a lot of pieces, and of course I didn't have any side view mirrors. And those were details where you had to make a decision, because looking at all of the on-set photos, and I had amassed quite a few, and photos of some of the screen used ones, you had a lot of leeway. You could either paint these yellow or leave them chrome, or you could paint in the windshield wipers or leave them alone. So little tiny subtle details. The placement would be different on where the sign was on the roof. I of course put it where the existing hole was, and I had puttied the other 2 holes shut where the wires went into it. So as I'm disassembling these police cars, I remembered, or was reminded, that the light bar is held in place by a screw in the very middle, and that's where I had left the hole. Sure enough, I went through my bag of leftover parts from when I had converted this from a cop car to a taxi, and there was the screw. Now, as I had made the sign, it has a floor to it, and I had burned a little tiny hole in the very center of it so that I could stick it on a long wooden skewer so I could spray paint it better. And that hole was the exact diameter for the screw that had originally come off of the taxi when it was a police car. I also repaired that broken front tire. It took me a while to think of how to do it, and in the end, it was a simple solution. It was an 8/32 half-inch screw that is under the hubcap. So, yeah, things take me a little bit of time. Did you see the Egon figure that I recently finished hand painting? I think I started him in 2012. I'm a slowpoke. And as sometimes happens when you're a perfectionist and you're sitting on a secret because you want to make it as perfect as possible, you can get scooped. And I got scooped on the taxi. And in the Ghostbusters community, I like to call that no bueno. In the case of the taxi, a guy named Richard Ridley in the UK posted a photo of a taxi. And I was, for a split second, thinking it might have even been a screen-used prop. But it wasn't. He had done the exact same convert a police car into a taxi project that I thought I was the only person in the world that would ever want to do that. And he beat me to the punch. So we got to talking, and he said he was planning to do another taxi. He was going to do one of the squash taxis, like the one that William Bryant owns, his souvenir from the movie. In working on this project, I had started a new Facebook album of reference photos of the cars on set, and I'd had conversations with people that had pointed me to some of these photos, like Lauren White and Derek Osborne. Then I was having a conversation with both Lauren White and Chris McAnally about this ambulance that can be seen at the feet of Stay Puft in some of the photos. And Lauren White showed me the auction photo when the thing was sold in July of 2016. Matter of fact, he came very close to being the winning bid, but unfortunately, he got scooped on that. So, here was the Scoop-Y-Up ambulance as seen in Ghostbusters. Scoop-Y-Up. I'm detecting a theme here. In independent conversations that I had a couple of weeks apart with both Lauren White and Chris McAnally, they put forth the idea that the Scoop-Y-Up ambulance might have been a converted A-Team van, which would have been available in 1983 when they were working on Ghostbusters. So we were pretty sure it was an A-Team van, but we really didn't have any way to confirm it, and we don't know who bought the thing, so we can't ask them. So a few weeks later, months later, I don't know how long it was, I'm talking to Richard Ridley on Facebook, and he mentions that he's gonna make another taxi from another police car. And I said, hey, if you don't need the light bars off those 2 police cars you've customized, I can think of a project for those. Didn't say what it was. He comes back immediately and he goes, oh, I have a plan for those. I've bought an A-Team van and I'm going to put the light bars on top of it, paint it white and orange, and turn it into this scoopy up ambulance as seen in this auction photo. I'm like, oh my God, you have scooped me again. He's already made one, and it's a pretty good match for the photos that we see from the auction. And if it was an A-Team van, do you think the guys that made the movie broke out the Mr. T driver from the Ertl 1983 A-Team van, or you think they left him in there? You can't really spot it in any photos, including some that are really, really close on it, and unfortunately I can't share. But there does appear to be the face of a driver in there. So what are the odds they took him out and put something else in its place? I don't know. I like to think that possibly Mr. T inside of a scoopy up ambulance is somewhere in the genetic makeup of Ghostbusters from 1984. It's just a lot cooler to me that way. Some of the other cars they use in the miniature scene might possibly have been General Lee's from the Dukes of Hazzard. So, I don't know now whether or not I want to cut the light bars off of these two police cars. Even though I originally bought them to customize, kind of grown attached to them. But these things are becoming scarce as hen's teeth, to quote Richard Ridley. So, I don't know. Do I want to find two more of these? Or maybe I just want to build these light bars from scratch. Take some blue and some red acrylic and try to make the silver parts? Anyway, I know they make some light bars that are similar for model kits and things, so I might not do this exactly the recipe they used in the movie, but eventually I am going to turn this guy into a scoopy up ambulance because we think Mr. T kinda, maybe, was in Ghostbusters. Also, here's a sneak peek of another project I'm working on. I bought a couple of smaller A-Team vans for another scale of things I've been working on. Hey, P.S. I know it's a long shot, but if anybody watching this is the person that bought the Scoopy Up ambulance at auction, and if you don't mind, would you tell us whether or not there's a Mr. T inside of it? We'd love to see a photo of that. Thanks. Now, for a long time there, I wasn't exactly crediting the photos when I would find one online and save them to my computer. My neighbor's robot lawnmower is mowing his lawn and it freaked me out. I was like, what is that slithering in the grass over there? So let me quickly recap my journey with the 440 police cars. I didn't see any blue ones at first, so I bought some white ones. And my thinking was, well, if I get a nice white one, then I might convert it to a blue one somewhere down the line. I had 3 of these. One of them was a total beater. The roof light bar was completely smashed up, didn't even have the red or blue parts to it. So, I think that's dissipated now. Where is he? I can't see him. Things I do for you people. And I said, well, if you're converting another police car to a taxi, that means you'd have 2 leftover light bars, right? If you don't need them for anything, I might have a project for them. He responded almost immediately on Facebook and he said, oh, I have a project for them. I'm gonna put them on an A-Team van and turn it into the Scoopy Up ambulance. I'm like, oh! He scooped me again. That just broke my glasses. pooped me again. Let's do the same take, but without breaking the glasses this time.